Welcome to the ACEVEDO video store. This is my first video essay about the history of The Big Boss Part 2. The Big Boss was Bruce Lee's first kung fu movie and was released in Hong Kong on October 23, 1971, and it became both a critical and financial success. So Bruce Lee starred into more films, Fist of Fury and The Way of the Dragon. Afterwards, he starred in the Warner Bros. Co-production film Enter the Dragon, and that became a huge success and people wanted to see more Bruce Lee movies. But he passed away a week before Enter the Dragon premiered. So an entire genre started around him, which was called Bruceploitation. Essentially, these were films with actors who sorta looked like Bruce Lee, while also being advertising starring as Bruce Lee. Their last names will be spelled differently. For example, Bruce Le, Bruce Lai, Bruce Tai, Bruce Long, and Dragon Lee. Also, don't forget Bronson Lee, a combination of Charles Bronson and Bruce Lee. One of them was Bruce Le, played by Wong King Long, and his first Bruceploitation film was in 1976, and was an unofficial sequel to The Big Boss. The film was appropriately titled The Big Boss Part 2, not to be confused with the Dragon Lee movie, The Big Boss 2. You could tell the difference because one movie has the word part in it, while the other movie doesn't have the word part in it. King Lung was credited with his actual name, but in later Bruceploitation films he will be credited as Bruce Le, which is similar to other Bruceploitation movies, where usually the actors who are playing Bruce Lee are not credited with their actual names. The film is directed by Chan Chu, who was the first assistant director in The Big Boss, and he also played the ice factory manager in the first film. In Part 2, he reprises his role again, taking over the business from the boss after he got killed by Cheng Chao-on. To my knowledge, Chan Chu is the only actor to reprise the role in this film. Lin Kun is in this movie, and he was previously in The Big Boss, but he plays a different character. This is similar to other Bruceploitation films, where they'll actually bring actors who actually appear in real Bruce Lee movies to appear in Bruceploitation movies. Two examples being Game of Death and The Clones of Bruce Lee. Game of Death is an interesting example because Game of Death is technically an official Bruce Lee movie while also being a Bruceploitation film, because Bruce Lee started filming the movie before he started filming Enter the Dragon, so he had to stop from there, but he couldn't finish it because he's dead. So Golden Harvest got Robert Klaus to finish the movie, and they released it in 1978. Robert Wall was in the movie, and he was previously in Fist of Fury and The Way of the Dragon, and also Enter the Dragon. The Clones of Bruce Lee featured John Ben and Bolo Long, along with, let me read the list here, Bruce Le, Bruce Lai, Bruce Tai, and Dragon Lee. All of them combined in one movie. Ben was in The Way of the Dragon playing as the main antagonist, and Bolo Young was in Enter the Dragon, and he also appeared in several Bruceploitation movies. But in case, The Big Boss Part 2 was filmed at two locations from the previous movie, which was the Ice Factory and the Buddhist Temple from the first film. The Buddhist Temple was used in both films as the boss's mansion. The way the movie connects with the first movie is to make a new character named Cheng Chao-on as the brother of Chao-on. Chao-on was played by Lo Lai, who was also in the Shaw Brothers movie Five Fingers of Death. The film starts with the opening credits featuring the final fight in The Big Boss of Chao-on fighting against the boss. During this opening credits, the fight scene intercuts with newly made footage for this movie. After Chao-on kills the boss, he's taken by police to jail. Several years later, his brother Chao-on goes to Thailand to deliver boats because he's a sailor, and meets up with Chao-on in jail. And Chao-on tells Chan Chu about the man who is responsible for his father's death, which is the ice factory manager from the first movie. So Chao-chun seeks vengeance for his father's death and decides to stay in Thailand, but he needs a job. But thankfully, a gang offers him a job to work with them, because they know Chao-chun is looking for the ice factory manager, and they want them to fight against each other, because the ice factory manager possibly owns a box that is filled with gold that the gang really wants. The details of the plot are sort of not clear afterwards. I couldn't find that much information. So what happens afterwards is that Chao-chun and Zhu Yi are at the river trying to get away from the gang and also fighting against alligators, while this entire scene is played with James Bond music, because in this film, and like many other Bruceploitation films such as The Dragon Lives Again, they steal a lot of copyrighted music. An example being is that The Big Boss Part 2 steals a Jimi Hendrix song called Purple Haze. Then Chow Chun has fight scene with Michael Chan Wayman. Even though he has third billing the credits, Wayman only appears in this movie for 10 minutes. So then later on, Chow Chun finds out the Ice Factory manager was the man he was looking for, so he goes to the Ice Factory to fight him, and the movie ends with the Ice Factory manager getting killed by the circular saw blade. And that's the end of the movie. The odd thing about the story is that it takes place several years after the first movie, because in the film, Chow Chun says that Chow Wan left when he was 5 years old. And Chow Chun looks like he's in his early 20s in the movie, so that means this film takes place 2 decades later, and the current time frame of the Big Boss Part 2 takes place in the 1990s. In the film, Chow Chun is referred to as the second Big Boss because he is the brother of Chow Wan.
You're Chow Wan's brother. Right. We should call you the second Big Boss. Real good kung fu.
But that is misinterpreting the actual title of the film. The reason why it's called The Big Boss is because it's referring to the main antagonist of the movie, the boss. It does not mean that Bruce Lee's character, Chow Wan, is the big boss. Another interesting thing about Chow Chun being the brother of Chow Wan is that actually it's considered canon that Chow Wan doesn't have any siblings in the first film, which is because according to Brandon Bentley in his audio commentary of The Big Boss, there's a photo book of the movie, and it details how the reason why Chow Wan has the necklace that was given to his mother so he can't fight anymore is because he's the only male in his family after his father got killed. So in order to carry the bloodline of his family, Chow Wan can't die in a fight. But in The Big Boss Part 2, essentially the reason why Chow Chun has the necklace similar to Chow Wan's is because
every family member has one like it.
Which is sort of an interesting interpretation there, saying that every family member has the same type of necklace and all that. The film was released on April 2nd, 1976 by the Tangxing Film Company. Little is known about the box office or critical reception of the film, but after it was released, it fell into obscurity. The film has never received a home video release, but it did circulate around through VHS bootlegs, which is how filmmaker Mike Worth got to see the film because he rented it from a Chinese video store. But in the mid-2000s, there was a film collector by the name of Nasad, who owned a chain of cinemas in South Africa, and it's been said that he has a collection of the rarest kung fu movies in the world. According to a Backyard Asia blog post, during the 70s and 80s, a lot of Asian films played in South African theaters. There was a quote-unquote one big cinema that had a lot of film prints to these Asian films, but the owner had passed away and his son-in-law took over the business, and that son-in-law was Nasad. And he formed a home video label called Global, where he will release these films from the film collection on DVD, which are usually bootlegs because they were DVD-Rs. A DVD was released in the mid-2000s by Global called Celluloid Fury, which was a compilation of movie trailers of kung fu movies. In the compilation, it featured an English trailer to The Big Boss Part 2.
Bruce Lee's Big Boss. Now comes The Big Boss Part 2, a sequel to the film which rocketed Bruce Lee to international fame.
In the late 2000s and the early 2010s, Nasad revealed on the internet that he owned a 35mm print of the English dub of The Big Boss Part 2. The Kung Fu Cinema forum got in contact with him along with several people asking him to release the film, but he refused to release the film, and according to Brandon Bentley in his audio commentary of The Big Boss, he wanted to sell the print for an absurd amount of money. Many people didn't believe him that he actually owned the movie itself, so what he did was upload the first 10 minutes of his print on YouTube. The YouTube upload shows the condition of the print that he had, which was incomplete and also filled with its jump cuts throughout the film. But it did prove the fact that he actually owned the print of the movie. Some members of the forum did manage to get the money to buy the print, but he already sold it to someone else. According to the Backyard Asia blog post, he sold it to a cinema in Zambia, which is a city in South Africa. So for an amount of time since then, that's all you could see of the movie. The first 10 minutes of the movie that wasn't complete, and also the trailer of the film itself. But in the late 2010s, Michael Wirth started making a documentary about the Bruceploitation genre, along with writing his book, The Bruceploitation Bible. While doing all this, he was collecting film prints of several Bruceploitation films to be remastered. In 2018, Wirth tracked down a 35mm print of the Mandarin version of The Big Boss Part 2, which was found in the US. According to Brandon Bentley, the film was shown in some point at the mid-2000s from a 35mm print in Quentin Tarantino's New Beverly cinema, so I'm presuming this is the same print that Michael Wirth did found and bought. On July 5th, 2021, the film had a screening in the New Beverly cinema as a double feature along with the film New Fist of Fury, directed by Lo Wei. Wirth has said there are plans to release the film on Blu-ray, but there's a lot of work to go into it. If you can't wait that long to catch a screening for the movie, don't worry. On August 2nd, 2021, the first 48 minutes of the Mandarin version was uploaded on YouTube because the upload came from a VHS copy. Throughout the movie, there's a lot of distortion which makes it somewhat unwatchable. So that is the history of The Big Boss Part 2, the unofficial sequel to the Bruce Lee film. I can only judge most of the movie because I don't have a way to watch the entire movie. Well, what I thought of it was that it was a decent film. I did like the action scenes, how it was going with and all that. Some of the story elements were a bit confusing, like how in the mansion and somewhere in the property, there's this odd looking cave where they have all these stuff and drinks in them. I sort of like how the phone tries to connect with the first film, even though it sort of fails in that way. But I think it's a decent film, and I probably would watch it again when the film finally comes out on Blu-ray or I'm able to see it at a screening. But that's all the history video. I hope you enjoyed something and learned something. Have a nice day.